Dermot, thanks for joining us. Very sort of philosophical view at the end. A couple of points I want to pick you up. You think the price cap has worked, even though you say companies have failed, and you think that Ofgem should be more involved in decarbonisation. Can you explore both of those, particularly the price cap?
I didn't actually say the price cap had worked. What I said was it was extant and that it was having an effect. That is, I would say it's too early to comment on its overall efficacy. However, it is clearly having an effect. Some companies are leaving the market, others there's still new entry going on, and indeed there's a lot of change in the sector. I think as such it seems to at this stage be fulfilling its goals, but obviously a further look we will continue to report on it, and when it will be removed I think is going to be a key issue for Ofgem in the months and years to come. What
about the fact that energy companies, and you said it, aren't making money anymore?
Well, some companies, I believe, are, but the majority are not. But such was the nature of the price cap. It was supposed to provide a reset for the sector. It was supposed to provide an incentive to improve efficiency so that over time companies will start to earn more money, particularly the efficient ones. The inefficient ones won't earn money, but that's frankly the way markets should be.
When it comes to heat, and you talked about decarbonisation, the challenges of getting rid of my gas boiler and everyone else's, the net zero targets that we've now got set in stone, how do you feel Ofgem needs to be involved and your successor needs to be more political then?
No, I wouldn't know. I think on heat the main decisions, the policy decisions to be made are for government. But I think it's for Ofgem to A, try and raise awareness of the challenges, B, as necessary, fund research in seeing what solutions will be found for heat, and ultimately, perhaps, depending on what solutions are chosen, ensuring that any of the major changes that will take place are funded in an efficient way, particularly if performed by network companies and licensees.
One interesting point, you talked about electric vehicles, and that is a real societal shift. And you talked about the discrepancy between perhaps rich people driving electric cars being subsidised by the poor. How important an issue do you see that, and what are the dangers you foresee?
I think it is a significant issue in the sense that at the moment, currently, evidence suggests that electric vehicles are being bought by well-off people, which is obviously fine. The point would be if we use public, consumer money to facilitate the rollout of electric vehicles, which in many ways is desirable, it could be seen as a transfer from the less well-off to the well-off, which is not something I would personally wish to see and is not consistent with our objectives. I think it is a significant issue and needs to be addressed. We don't have perfect solutions for it, but in general, if decarbonisation paths lead to perceived inequalities and injustices, that will make decarbonisation much harder to deliver. So somehow or other we have to deal with those kinds of issues.
And finally, you look back and you said the room has got perhaps better balance in terms of gender, but definitely not enough BME, ethnic minorities. It's a significant issue for this sector, isn't it? How frankly white it is.
I think it is an issue. I don't want to be overly prescriptive, but I do think you look at the industry and say traditionally it was run by white men, of whom I'm one. In that sense, bringing more diversity into it is likely to make the industry more effective, more receptive to its customers and the diversity of the customer base. I'm not trying to force change. I'm not trying to tell companies they must do things, but I do think the industry would do well to look at this issue and hopefully make significant improvements in the next 5 years.
Have you enjoyed it, or has it been a stressful 5 years?
I've enjoyed it actually very much, but it certainly has been stressful at times. But that's, if you were in a boring job, I suppose that would eventually grind you down as well. But I have enjoyed it.
And what's your wish for Ofgem as it continues? It's a tricky line as new technologies comes in and new products come in. The ability of Ofgem to cope with this change, as the same as the sector is coping. Do you believe it needs to have a more stronger regulatory force in the future?
I think it needs to be, as I said, I think it needs to facilitate decarbonisation. I think that's a hugely important goal for it. It needs to avoid becoming a policymaker because it does not have the mandate to do that. But at the same time, it can't shirk from difficult decisions. And I think there will be many difficult decisions. Some of the topics we just talked about require decisions. In many cases, Ofgem will have to make them, and it should not shirk from those, both making them possibly annoying some people or stakeholders, but nonetheless justifying and explaining why it's made its decisions. So it can't, and I'm sure it won't, it can't run away from things. Big challenges, it has to try and deal with them.
Dermot Nolan, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Best of luck with everything. Thank you.
Thank you.